Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live post-game show. My name is Kristian Jack. I will be joined by James Sharman shortly. He has just lost his connection with bad storms in his area. He'll be joining me in a second. But welcome and in for the post-game show here. You may have just watched Toronto FC. In the end, comfortably beat York United by 4-0. Earlier, you may well have watched Montreal as well. CF Montreal get through to the semi-finals of the Canadian Championship with a two-goal win, 3-1 win over Halifax Wanderers at the Wanderers grounds. You may well have been there. If you have, please let me know in the comments. And welcome to this post-game show. It was a fantastic day so far, and we've got another game to come as well. Please put your comments in the chat. We'll get to all your questions in a second. We will be joined live from BMO Field. Technical difficulties, obviously, with lots of storms going on later, with some reaction as well from a couple of guys that are in the press box. And as soon as James is back from his technical issues, he will join me as well as we do a little footy show chat after dark. So please put your questions in there as well on the side, and we'll get to those. But this has been an interesting night. It was obviously a very special night, a triple header that was obviously started in Halifax, Nova Scotia. If you missed it, what a start. Corey Bent with a brilliant strike for Stephen Hart's team to make it 1-0 for Halifax. But in the end, Montreal, a little bit too strong for them, I think, in the second half. Came back and tied it up to 1-1. And then in the second half, Baloo Tableau with a goal in the 90th minute and one in the 93rd as well. Was pretty much comfortable in the end for them. Stephen Hart, quite magnanimous actually in his post-game press conference, saying that despite losing the game as late as they did in the 90th minute, the golfing class was there in the second half. And Montreal, after resting a number of players, did put on the likes of Lassie Lapalainen and Baloo Tableau in the second half. And then obviously book the spot into the semi-finals. Graham the Fan 1 says, very much enjoyed the game so far. I know a lot of Toronto FC fans may well have tried to get to the game tonight, and it may well have been very difficult for them because of the weather. What about those fans who braved it out tonight there at BMO Field? A very, very difficult one for many of those fans to stand there. I would have been there with them. You guys know me. I've been wet many times at BMO Field before, but with lots of games going on here throughout the Canadian Premier League teams as well, then obviously the coverage was all over the place for us with 3 games, and so I needed to be here for that. And here he is. Technical difficulties have been resumed. We may well just drop out again at any time, James. So I don't want to keep talking. Welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I apologize. All these, the footballing gods are just not smiling on us right now.
Well, we're
York
here,
fans.
not in the rain. So
yeah, I guess so. We are dry for the time being. Yeah, thanks, mate. Good to be on.
Yeah, likewise. It has been a while, but it's always great to chat with you. You and I obviously go way back, a little footy show reunion after dark, so to speak, here tonight. So we're open to any suggestions, any questions that you want to talk about. Obviously, this is all about TFC tonight as well, what's gone on at York United. James knows all about York. He sells his pies at York Lions Stadium as well. So he's actually technically on the payroll of York. So this is a bit of a tough loss tonight for you, mate. You had your shirt with your name on the back.
I know.
Tough 4-0 loss for your team.
All I can say is they got a very refined palate at York for sure. Right. Yeah, you know what? A tough loss. But I mean, listen, what did we really expect today? I mean, listen, that game, even in the best conditions, it would have been tough for York. But those conditions were just horrendous, horizontal rain. It got really windy in the second half. So difficult for everyone. But quite frankly, you saw the gulf there, I think, between, the fourth place CPL team and a TFC that it's an awful season, yeah, but they're not the worst team in MLS despite the standings, I don't think. It's been a very strange season for them. They're not that bad. They're not a great team by any stretch, but there's a gulf, clearly a gulf. And it just shows, I think, the CPL, outside the top couple of teams, maybe where there's still plenty of growth there. And that's fine. It's just fine. 4-0 could have been more than that, quite frankly. But listen, experience, KJ. And, I look at a game like tonight and, we love our cup tournaments, you and I. I know you wrote about it actually on the CPL website.
Yeah.
With the magic of the cup. And it was a great article because, there's something special about it, right? And we're building that here. So I thought tonight was a special moment for this tournament. A derby was born tonight, essentially, between York and Toronto. So that I brought a big smile to my face. The result didn't, but the fact is we're onto something, I think.
I totally agree. I'm watching these games with an enormous smile on my face because obviously I'm kind of rooting for CPL teams to be competitive, but that Halifax game was close all the way to 90th minute. What more could you ask for? Wonderful, packed stadium, over 6,000. It feels like games you and I grew up with in the FA Cup. It feels like big not Premier League teams then because they weren't, but top tier Division 1 clubs going to lower league football matches and being crammed in. And, you got the cameras coming in and match of the day coming in and talking about it. And can you get the shark? And maybe you will, maybe you won't. That's part of football culture or soccer culture, whatever your preference. That's part of culture. That's what we have to build here. And that was the people who built the Canadian Premier League and expanded the Canadian Championship. That was their dream to make this come alive, Shams.
That's how you build history, isn't it? And build a league identity. And like you mentioned the word culture, and that's what it is. That's how you build culture. It doesn't happen overnight. This is what, year 3? We're still so young in the CPL and Canadian football in itself. Okay, I know they've been around for a long time, some of these clubs, but Canadian football is in its infancy still. And to me, the building blocks are now in place, and we're going somewhere. We're growing. We're going somewhere now. For many years, even when we used to work together, I didn't know where we were going from a directional standpoint in Canadian soccer. I had no clue. It was mismanaged. There were agendas, and they're still there in some capacity. But now we've got a foundation, building blocks, and nights like tonight, and the performances of the Halifaxes against Montreal. We saw Vancouver lose out last round to CPL. That tells me that we're definitely going in the right direction. And finally, there's a target. And it's really exciting days. And so despite the weather, despite the result, anyone involved in the CPL should be happy tonight, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. If you were at BMO Field or if you were at the Wanderers grounds, please let us know there if you can get home and dry off, and then maybe you can turn us on, put the kettle on or something, and join us for the chat. Adam Jenkins says, neither of you two wanted to join me in the booth tonight. Well, it's to be honest, Adam, and we both love you, but it often sounds like a weather report when you're commentating, mate. You are jinxed every time you go out there and do a game. It is throwing. This poor guy's like talking through midnight games in CONCACAF leagues with lightning delays and all sorts of stuff going on. So, no, we didn't join you in this one, Adam, but we appreciate all your hard work that you do for us as well. Masood says there was definitely a gulf in quality, like Aston Villa versus the English Premier League teams. Okay, that's a nice little joke thrown in there. Shams is frozen. I don't know if he's back or if you can hear me, but maybe the storms where Shams lives is frozen in a minute there. Nick, I don't know if we want to take him out and bring him back in, my producer there, just to see what's going on with James, and we'll throw him back in a second. Matt says Canadian football is still so young, lots of talent coming down the pipeline. Couldn't agree more. James is back as well, talking about young talent. James did freeze on me there, but there he comes back in again. So.
Well, can I mention I cut out there before I could respond to Adam?
Yes, please do.
Lovely sunny summer's day. I don't want to spend any time in a broadcast booth with Adam. Just for the record, no interest. So sorry, pal. No interest whatsoever. Yeah, but by the way, the weather, you know what? I felt somewhat comforted, listening to the pitter patter of the rain. It felt like in a tent at times. The broadcast
feel like that.
It's like raindrops on canvas. I quite enjoyed it.
I quite enjoyed it. I actually had the game on here, and then in my office had the window open and with the rain as well. I was getting like all this rain ambience around.
You were at BMO, basically.
Kind of was, yeah. Although, like I said earlier, it didn't actually finally get wet for a change. So that was an interesting one. Benedict Rhodes asked earlier, my friend, can Balou Tabla get himself back into the Canadian men's national team conversation with the strong rest of the season? Well, here's what we know about Balou Tabla. 2017 Canadian Championship final. He scored in that game against Toronto FC. That special game, Javinko scored in the 95th minute. It's 4.5 years ago. He cleared off to Barcelona, and Drogba told the world he was going to be great. Didn't really work out well for him. He comes back. I think what I'll say about that, Shams, is not necessarily more about Balou Tabla, but we're now in a conversation in 2021 where if a young Canadian does something, suddenly, not like a few years ago, there's a long list of players ahead of them right now with this Canadian team. A few years ago, you had a couple of good games. You're like, oh, he might get playing for Canada. Not right now.
We used to often get phone calls and emails from people saying, oh, my son's, he's trialing at AC Milan or trialing at Chelsea. And, oh, wow, that could be a story. Let's jump on that. Wow, Canadian kid at a big club. Now it's like, meh. Yeah. Happens all the time. But you're right. It's not easy. We have that depth now, don't we? For the first time since I've been in Canada, 30 years, the first time we had that great depth in the national program that it doesn't matter where you're coming from. You've got to earn that spot. And, there's a couple of guys knocking on the door perhaps, but that's a pretty heavy door to open at the moment.
I'd say.
I think John knows what his preferred 11 is. Certainly his preferred 13 or 14. And it's hard to get in there, so why mess with it? But yeah, sure, Balou Tabla, show it. Show us the money, so to speak. You've only got yourself to beat here, and maybe he can do it. He's got a platform to demonstrate from now, at least.
He does, and I think with Montreal performing so well this season, he's not found it very easy to walk and get minutes there. So I think before we start talking about him being an international player, now again, you got to prove yourself at the Major League Soccer level first, right? But another question about Montreal came in earlier. There's lots of questions coming in, so keep them in. From Laith, where do you think CF Montreal will end up? I think, well, right now, these are the last guys who had their trophy, the engraved on the trophy. They're the reigning champs, so to speak. 2019, I know it was a long time ago, but 2020, they weren't allowed to play for it. But they got it. So they're the champs right now. So like anything, before you beat the champs, they're still the champs. So, they do play Forge in the next round. That will be an absolutely fascinating semifinal CPL versus MLS clash. And we'll have another one. Toronto FC will play the winner of the next game that is live on One Soccer going on in probably about 20 minutes or so. We'll keep an eye on that as we're on the air here between Pacific and Cavalry at the Spruce Meadows Stadium in Calgary. By the way, we'll also have some chats with our guys at BMO Field later, Michael Singh and Charlie O'Connor-Clark will join us both as well from BMO. Fingers crossed with all the technical difficulties that's going on with all these storms right now. Charles, what's it been like for you, mate, in terms of the conversations you're having with fellow friends, people who are interested in the game a little bit? I'm starting to get those text messages now from friends who had no interest in the game. Like, I hear Canada might qualify for the World Cup. I'm not making them up. They're happening. They're real.
Yeah.
What's it been like for you, as obviously been someone who's been in the country longer than I have and been covering the sport in Canada longer than me? This is pretty unprecedented times.
It is, yeah. There's definitely a shift happening in the mainstream sporting conversation. Obviously, the hardcores out there have been talking about this forever. The Voyagers, and even the last games at BMO Field when Canada played, I thought, despite being outnumbered in that last game against El Salvador, the Canadian fans, the hardcores, are loud. They're still there. They've gone nowhere, and so much credit should be given to them. But we need more than them, right, to really grow this sport. And I'm seeing that now more and more as well. People, coming up to me in the street, get recognized a lot less nowadays. Anyway, that's maybe because I'm aging so badly.
We're all the same, mate. That's fine with me. I'm okay.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
honest, I am.
Just go see him make his pies, and then you can
exactly
chat football and eat.
But no, so many people I know are asking me just that question: how good is Canada? Like, they got some really good players. Like, how good are these players? And I mentioned Alphonso Davies, and obviously mainstream Canada, I think, know him now. He's not a household name just yet, but he's going to be.
Right.
But I think he's kind of crossing those boundaries and borders that have been there for a long time. He's smashing them down. Let's hope that a Tajon Buchanan follows suit. Carl Laren, I think, is going to do it as well. And while all this happens, I just look at Atiba. And I don't feel sorry for him because, Atiba's a positive guy. He doesn't care. I think he enjoys the anonymity in some regard. But I think, he is arguably the greatest athlete we've ever produced globally, from a global standpoint.
Agree,
Hockey fans will hate me for that, but what he's accomplished is incredible. So I think, when he retires, he'll look back and will really enjoy the fact that he played with these young kids and was part of that transition, because that's what it is, right, Cage? It's a transition. I think we're only going to keep on going up here, and I think mainstream media have kind of got it right now. We're seeing the games being broadcast on Sportsnet and TSN. Finally, should have happened a while back, of course, and that's nothing against One Soccer. Have done a great job. But yeah, I think it's a real renaissance time, of sorts for the sport in this country, and I'm really happy to be part of it. Cage, 15 years ago, we're sitting in the studios at the Score, trying to get some kind of notoriety, get this sport out there to the public, knocking our heads against a brick wall. It seemed over and over again. Now that brick wall's crumbling down. I think it's still there a little bit, but it's crumbling down.
Yeah, let's just take this example right now, right? We've got many people watching us on social media. We've got lots of, over 50 people here on the chat on a random Wednesday night after a dreadful rainy game.
Cold day in Stoke.
Yeah, but we haven't mentioned one thing about what you and I used to talk about first, footy show. We always lead with European sports, right? Always lead with European leagues, right? The Canada stuff would have to come in later, but if we ever led a footy show with a Canada story, it would have been really strange. No, it was always Premier League, right? It was always international football, and then the MLS and stuff, and the other stuff, the Canada stuff, both men and women would follow later, just because it didn't sell as much back then. But now here we are talking about this because there's so many people out there with a passion and interest for it.
I wonder. I mean, I didn't watch the big networks during the Canada games as far as their news shows. Were they leading with Canada? I mean, that's a stretch, perhaps, but I bet they're in the opening credits, the opening, what's coming up. They're mentioning it. That never happened before. We're talking about Canadian sports or soccer in general on the normal big shows when something bad happened. Right. That's really what it was. When Canada gets crushed 8-1 or lose,
we get all the phone calls there.
Hey, Mr. Popular. Mr. Popular now. Hey, can you join us on this station? All the time. And now it's like, oh, geez, well, let me see if I can fit you into my schedule.
Right.
I usually can, to be honest with you.
Sure, I get it. I'm with you.
But it's amazing how it's changed, right? And like I said, we fought the fight, the good fight, I think. And but let's not kid ourselves. We're not there yet, and let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's still a lot of work to be done. There's a big, long journey here. But I tell you what, if we get close to the end of the arc and in with a chance of qualifying for a World Cup, watch out. That's going to be the moment, I think, that threshold that we're going to crash through.
And it's coming quick because this window is thick and fast. It's like 3 games here, another 3 coming in October. It's unprecedented. By March, we'll know. And that's just how amazing it is. Matt says Canadian football is still so young. Lots of talent coming down the pipeline. John asks, getting some rapid fire questions here. Which CPL team will give us the next MLS Cup set? Well, I have to say probably Forge, because they are ready and primed. They've watched these teams. They watched York tonight. They've watched Cavalry, so they've watched Pacific beat the Whitecaps, they've watched Halifax have a go, and because of their draw and because they're playing other competitions, they've won back-to-back Canadian Premier League trophies. They want to have a kick at these MLS teams. They're built, they're longer. Forge have been around a lot longer. They've got continuity. They're a tournament team. They will play CF Montreal in the semifinals and will not be intimidated, John. So I think look ahead to that one. That will be fun.
Hey, Kate, just going back. Sorry, jumping on the Forge here. I mean, I love watching the Forge and what they're doing, because going back to our old days, many years ago, we did stories on Sigma, and I interviewed Bobby so many times.
That's right.
And I mean, one of the most cultured football men in the country, for sure back then. And now seeing what he's done, taking this team to the next level with the Forge. I mean, wow, it makes me happy, very happy, and very happy for him as well and his brother as well.
Yeah, him and Costa have done a great job there, right? Just good soul people in the Canadian soccer landscape for a long time, and their legacy before Forge came was built, right? MLS players drafted through so many players from Sigma before, so that was exciting. Steve says Zator can play at MLS level. Agree or not? I would say yes, I do agree. I'm not saying he would definitely be a starter every week, but I think a very dependable player.
Keep the arm down. Just keep the arm down a bit, Dom.
a little bit of a handball in that first half, but these days handball, I mean, it's.
What is the rule, by the way? You're the rules guy, Cage. Well, explain to me, will you?
It's boring. That's what it is. It's a boring thing,
I mean, what's unnatural for me may not be unnatural for you.
I know, that's the thing. Is there anything more boring than getting out the rule book and then analysis per show? It's just, I don't know. For me, anyway, I might be wrong, but I used to do serious Premier League shows every Monday night, and we would literally have a segment every week about which ref messed up this week or what he got wrong this week. And there's a great guy on Twitter. Follow him, Dale Johnson. Right, follow.
What work he does, by the way, for VAR.
Unbelievable work that he does. I don't know how he maintains his composure / patience / interest to continue to put it out there. Doing great layman's work and just but incredible hard work. But
anything worse in this business than to have to analyze VAR every week. Every VAR call, every VAR decision, good or bad, you have to break it down. I mean, my God, it must take absolutely hours. He can't be married, right? Explain that to the wife. Sorry, I can't go out for dinner tonight. I'm watching 17 VAR incidents from Sunday's games.
I'm putting together a 50-point thread on Twitter right now.
Which I love. So it's great entertainment, but I tell you what, man. That is him, not me.
Me too, yeah. John asks, Krasnovic Ensar discuss. Had a great first half, the right back for York United tonight. Struggled a little bit in the second half. I don't think it was necessarily him. Jacob Schaffelberg had a banner night. Obviously, 2 great crosses for the goals. And I just think, in fact, producer Nick and I were talking about this before we came on. The pitch is bigger. It's wider than a lot of the CPL games you're going to play, and you've really got to open your body up and really got to stretch that team. And sometimes you can see that's how TFC got behind York tonight with that cross in there as well. So yeah, but Ensa, Abzi was really up for it. There are players in this CPL who can play in MLS. I'm sure of it. If they get their chance, and I know MLS scouts, would be foolish not to be watching some of these Canadian Premier League teams, James, just to see what can come up next, because this is what the league's about, to give players opportunities to play, to succeed, to fail, and come back and bounce back, because otherwise they're never going to get that chance.
And MLS, how do you build teams in MLS with that cap? You have to be clever and creative and have great scouting networks and get cheap talent. Simple as that. And hopefully they're not cheap for too long. That means they're successful, right?
Right.
But it's so imperative for these teams to extend their scouting tentacles, and CPL isn't far away, right? So before long, you'll be seeing, I think, a real path.
And James is gone with the lights out. You could see it right there. His lights went out just before he was about to speak. I had that moment. I was like, oh, no, lights have gone out. And then look, right there he is. We'll get Nick to remove that picture. But there you go. Let's take some of your questions before Sharms reboots to get us back on if he wants to bother joining us. Please put your questions down. Great to see so many people here on social media, so many people in the chat. Ask me anything you want for soccer tonight as we get set to preview. And in comes the texts from James as we get to break this down. So please ask questions, anything you want. Mazoud says, do you think Larea is ready for a move over to Europe? I've thought that for some time, Masood, for a while. I think it's pretty clear that people are looking at Richie. And, I think his development has been instrumental. He's a very unique profile of a player, really. And I think what I love about him the most is his versatility. And anytime you ask him to play, he succeeds. And I know you would say, okay, did he have a bit of difficulty in that opening half in Honduras when he played, as a fullback and was asked to cut in higher at the top of the square that John Herdman plays there, the box midfield, potentially. But I don't necessarily think that was his fault. And I think he does a great job. Look, he's getting to that age where players will need to go if they're going to go. But I think, the way he plays for Canada at those high levels, and again tonight playing left back, very consistent in there. I think that is a definite move that can happen for him soon. Sean adds, hey, thanks for the show. Great to have the discussion to help grow the game. Sean, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate that. And thanks for being with us. Aris Janikukas, and sorry if I spelled that wrong. I attempted. What's the update with Sebastian back to Toronto? Well, Sebastian Gutierrez played tonight in the game for York. So that's your update. Oh, you mean the other one? Well, he's here. He's living here. He loves the city. He loves the club. That's all I'll say. Benedict Rhodes, as nice in person as he is online. Ryan asks, come on. He's my boy, Benedict. No bad word, even if his mic's terrible in our podcast this week. I can't say anything about Benedict's bad. He's just the best. A great sense of humor as well, and enjoys the rugby. So I can't ever say about that. All right, next up, Andrew, KJ, do you think CONCACAF got it right with the new Champions League format? Interesting one, isn't it? Yeah, I do think they probably got it right, Andrew. Maybe put your follow-up in there. I'd like to know what you think as well. This is not just me about my opinions. Please put it down there. I think what's fascinating here, what we're seeing in the world in terms of not just in our sport, is governing bodies are clamoring for meaningful games all of the time. So let's throw it all into one pot. CONCACAF going to a new Champions League format. People wanting to push World Cups every 2 years and a Euro. What we're seeing now is, in all sports, this idea of a friendly or a qualifying game that everyone knows is going to be 5 or 6-0. These can't happen anymore. People don't want to watch these games. We have to, as a world, understand that the world is moving quickly. There's lots of things for people to watch, and these governing bodies are terrified of meaningless games. It's the reason why the Nations League was brought in. And I think what CONCACAF has done here and what they have got right is what Victor Montagliani said when he said, people want knockout matches. I think if CONCACAF are selling a new Champions League format, I think these new fans we're talking about, I don't think we'd be getting people clamoring to go to matches to watch games if it was game one of a game 4 group stage. So I think that's the most important thing that they've got right here. James is back. Great to see him. James, I was just saying before you left, and it's all good. You can, if you need to leave, it's fine. But just before you left, the lights went out behind you, and I knew you were going before you went.
I know.
It was that moment where I was like, my mate's leaving and he doesn't know, and I can't save him.
I saw something flickering. I got my camera light here, and that stuff. Oh, here we go again. So technology, I mean, I don't know. I just moved house as well, and I thought it'd be better here than my last location.
Hey, you moved house, but you still had time to put the Muhammad Ali and Danny Dichio pictures.
You know what? Behind. It's the only place in the world that the greatest and Dichio are on the same wall. I guarantee you.
There you go. There you go. Danny Dichio in the 24th minute, signed picture behind, and Muhammad Ali, who most of the time knocked people out in less than 24 minutes. So
that's right.
Very fitting. We're just talking, James, before you came on.
An event, one of your events, actually, I think it was, at Opera Bob's. And Red Patch Boys, I think it was a draw or something. I won it. I mean, Dichio would never give me anything, so... I appreciate
think my brother might have been involved in that whole process.
Probably.
I think he was involved in the framing or something. My brother's like with merchandise. Before you came on, we were just talking about the expanded CONCACAF Champions League that was run this week. But it was more of a bigger follow-up that I was saying in terms of, I think what we're seeing, James, now in sports, particularly in our sport, is governing bodies don't want to play friendlies anymore, mate. They're not interested in seeing these World Cup qualifiers of Gibraltar getting smashed 10-0. I think we've got to recognize that they're trying to shrink the pool of meaningless games, and understanding that particularly the international game, when they look at club football and now the money they're making, and there's this battle between the club game and the international game, they're looking at the club game and everyone's selling every game out, and everyone's like, it's meaningful, it's promotion, it's relegation, it matters. And then international football is going, we need to pull these players over. Oh, by the way, we're going to beat this like 8-0 this week in a meaningless game. So I think they're trying to make sure that every game matters. And this new acknowledgement by Victor Montagliani and CONCACAF kind of falls under that. What's your thoughts about where the game's going?
Yeah, I mean, people criticize the Nations League. I love it myself, just because it means fewer useless friendlies, right? Each game's somewhat meaningful. And I want to see these games. And for the CPL, that was a momentous day, wasn't it? It was yesterday, I think it wasn't. It was announced.
Yep.
Yeah, the 3 berths for 2023. It's just enormous to grow the sport, and we want competitive games. And I know right now FIFA is all about this World Cup every 2 years as well, and terrible idea, by the way. But again, it's the street. Where do we begin with that? I mean, when I see Arsene Wenger and some of these legends, taking the paycheck and saying, I think it's a great idea, like, stop it. Right. Just behave yourselves, because this is not good for the game. Right. But again, like I said, they're trying to shrink that calendar, so to speak, right? So you get more meaningful games, and the small nations will say, but we need these qualifiers. We need these 8-0s to learn and to grow, but that shouldn't be on the bigger nations, I don't think. There's a big world out there. You can have your pre-qualifiers, but overall, the more competitive football we can watch, the better. Because friendlies, I don't bother watching friendlies anymore, do you?
No, I don't think people do. And I think that's the concern. And I think that's what we're seeing all around the world, mate. I think, like, when you get progressive commissioners like Adam Silver with the NBA, I think that they're going to model their calendar very differently going forward, because, like, let's be honest, we all love our North American sports, but there's so many games. I mean, I know you're a big Leafs fan, and my son's a massive hockey fan, and we all love the NHL, but, like, let's buy into game number 15 against the Nashville Predators. Like, how exciting is that? It's just, is it really? It's just not. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of meaningless games right now that just have to be changed in terms of what's going forward, So James is gone again, I think, Nick. Maybe he's back. Yeah, James is there.
No, that was weird.
There you go. So I think for me, it's just I understand what they're doing. The international calendar is really broken beyond repair, really, and they've got to do something about it for me.
I wonder though also about, I mean, there's often been talk about a unifying global calendar as well. I'm not sure how you make it work, given the climates, we have to deal with over here, but there has to be some solution, because right now I think they're too distinct.
Right.
And I know MLS talked the big game. We want to be the biggest league in the world in 10 years. Well, that's probably not going to happen. But they can obviously get a lot bigger and more popular, and money talks, of course. But I don't know from a calendar standpoint how you make it work. And people say, well, why can't Europe switch over to a summer schedule? Well, good luck trying to convince the traditionalists that's a good idea.
Yeah,
when you have summer sports, cricket, massive in England, for example, they want the summer to themselves. It's not quite that simple. So maybe this is the best situation we have right now, but I'm always open to solutions to improve it.
Yeah, I think so. By the way, Pacific Cavalry have entered the pitch, and the Canadian anthem is on, and we'll update you with if and when those goals go in the fourth and final quarterfinal of the Canadian League, Canadian Championship tonight. It's been a long day, folks. All right, let's go through some of these. Graham the fan, who holds the best goal of the Canadian Championship this year? Corey Bent or Josh Hurd or someone else? That Bent goal today was special. Just absolutely got away from Samuel Piette, put his boot through it, went over the bar. And by the way, Corey Bent's from Preston, so he gets my vote just because of that.
There's a token Preston comment,
old Preston Northern lad. Josh Hurd's goal was fabulous, by the way, against the Whitecaps, but no, Bent gets mine.
Well, to get away from Piette as well, it's never easy, right?
Never easy.
Like
glue, Bulldog.
So,
yeah, exactly. Wallace says on the new revamped Canadian Canadian Premier League, 2 spots coming in for the CONCACAF. He says he cannot wait for Halifax to host Club America. That would be.
Can you imagine that?
Hey, it can happen now.
Hey, Club America would love that. They'd have a good time in Halifax.
They would have a
real good time.
Yeah, they might invite Dunlop there, and he might get involved in some of those party stories. Everybody who knows the inside jokes about those. I will not explain anything else other than that. But Dunlop was going to join us tonight, but he decided to go to BMO Field.
He's at the game.
And in fitting Brendan Dunlop fashion, he's not here to defend himself. We don't care. He wore a York 9 top and a TFC hat.
So I am just not in the least bit surprised.
He tweeted it for one night only, and I meant to tag you guys, and I'm like, no, this is just standard for Dunlop.
Yeah, exactly. No one owns more shirts and hat combinations than Brendan Dunlop, that's for sure.
That's right.
All his teams.
We love him anyway, and you can catch Brendan Dunlop and James on Footy Prime, which is great on DAZN as well.
And we battered Brendan on that show as well. So
I mean, come on, he's the whipping boy of these shows. At one point, I think he's waiting for that next kid to come along so he can do the same. But he's been that way since 2009 with us. Right?
We actually discussed this week. We're talking about on the DAZN show. We're talking about the time when he had the "Why Always Me" shirt under his shirt.
Yes,
just after Balotelli had done it.
That's right,
and he tore it off during a broadcast. It was actually really great, and it took me back a few years for sure.
I remember that one. Yeah, we were also talking recently with a mutual friend about one of my charity tournaments where he asked if he could take my free MLS snood that we got from MLS Cup in 2010, and he took the snood and wore it. That's right, in a charity game, he wore the snood. That was back when Yaya Toure and those guys wore them out of control before they were banned in the Premier League. Do you remember how?
Yeah, Tevez and that.
Yeah, Tevez. They were wearing these enormous scarves in the Premier League.
It was ridiculous. Yeah, you remember playing for Score United, and we were terrible, and B always looked amazing. He always had his socks up to his knees. But Sid Sixero, he came out for that first match with us, and he was captain, of course. It's Sid, and he was just to the nines, including the captain's armband. And they're playing the Centennial Park in Etobicoke, the lowest division football you can imagine. And he comes out, and we lost 11-0.
Right. Yeah. Captain's armband, Sid Sixero.
Captain's armband.
Never forget it. Hello to Eduardo from Mexico. He says his team is Tigres and his favorite club from Canada is Vancouver Whitecaps. Eduardo, thank you. Appreciate that. Great to be with us. Tigres, wow. Yeah, I can understand why you're a Tigres fan. They are a special team, no doubt about it. Drew just got back from the match. I bet Halifax would have more fans versus America than we had at BMO tonight. Drew, hey, you made it, mate. You were there.
Yeah.
Every credit that you're back. I hope you've had a shower or you've got a nice warm blanket and a cup of tea. You're not getting, going to get sick. That's the kind of night where you really do get sick tonight.
But those are the nights, right? These crazy weather nights are when the clubs and the fans can really begin to bond a little bit as well.
Agreed.
And say, I was there at that stadium on that night.
That's right.
When we lost 4-0 to TFC for the first time we met them. It's still a moment, right? It's an occasion, and it's history now being made. So if you were there, I know there weren't many of you, but if you were there, congratulations, because you're proper fans.
I'm sure there are people, I don't know, but I'm sure there are some TFC fans who've been to every game. I'm sure there is. Every home game. So hello to Darren Phillips, who says he was at the Wanderers ground tonight. Atmosphere was awesome with the packed house. I love it. I just love that stadium.
Have you been there?
Yeah. Not yet. So I'm going to go there soon. I know Nick, my producer, is on this, that we were going to go for this game today. But alas, triple headers, can't really just go and do content around one game and just ignore the others. So it's very difficult to do stuff from on site. But I
I've
encourage
heard
anybody to go there because it just looks an unbelievable
looks
atmosphere.
incredible. I hear they have great pies there too.
Oh,
Yeah, and there's actually they played York last weekend, right?
yeah, they did.
And there's a chant going back and forth saying our pies are better than your pies,
No way.
which I loved. But I need to go over to Halifax for a working trip
Yes,
to
you do.
taste the competition. But yeah, apparently they're great pies.
Oh wow, we should have a contest to see like what people like.
Yeah.
No winners or losers in these contests. Do you remember those like when they used to have like I can't remember. I used to go to events and they used to have Coke versus Pepsi, but you had to cover them up and you didn't know which
Oh
one it
yeah,
was.
that's
And
right.
you
Yeah,
guessed
the
which one.
Pepsi challenge.
Yeah, Pepsi challenge. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That should be the Sharman challenge.
That's
Their
a great
pies
idea.
versus your pies.
Yeah.
Try the one that you like the best, and then no one knows which one it is, and you get to eat 2 pies.
Yeah,
So,
that's not a bad idea, you know. We could try that, right?
I think that would be fun.
Yeah. Okay, get the CPL marketing people on that.
Yeah, well,
Because we're just the ideas guys here.
They're
right?
listening. Yeah. So
we're the idea guys, so they can actually do it for us.
I'll add it to my agenda for my 27th meeting tomorrow of the week.
Is that your new gig? Is it pretty much just meeting after meeting after meeting?
It's quite a lot of meetings and a lot of content as well. Hopefully trying to push it out there as many people hopefully are noticing. Talking of which, it has kicked off at a stadium that I have been to this very season. Spruce Meadows in Calgary, Cavalry 0, Pacific 0. In fact, I went to the game, Cavalry versus Pacific, in the summer already this year that ended 0-0. And if it ends 0-0 tonight, teams will not be getting a point. They'll be kicking penalty kicks. Jeffrey asks, where's Mike and Chaz? Well, Chaz is here.
That was good timing, wasn't it?
On time. Charlie O'Connor-Clark, our correspondent, live from BMO Field. I know it's quite loud there, but you're not wet. You're dry, which is a good thing.
No. Yeah, I managed to stay out of it.
Good for you. Thanks for joining us, mate. How was the night? And we'll get to the press conference stand in a minute, but how was the overall match experience for you?
It was good. I mean, it was very clearly a lot nicer to be up here in a press box than anybody who's out there. I can see the stands right now, and I can still see the rain coming down pretty hard. So a lot of respect to anybody, including Jeff there, who was in the stands tonight.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was a fun atmosphere. I mean, with all the people that were here, I know that York were very excited, and everybody, again, all the staff from York that were up here in a box were very excited. Obviously, a little bit more somber now, but it's still generally a good experience, and nice to see a CPL team's logo up on the board at BMO Field.
Yeah, great, good, well said. On the CPL team, and we're gonna get Michael Singh on later to talk about a little bit about TFC, but Charlie, I don't think there's anybody who knows York better than you right now. You've covered a lot of the games for me. You've been there a lot lately. Overall, I know 4-0 kind of flattered TFC a little bit. Your overall thoughts on their performance, and by the way, their team, because they picked Gutierrez and Petrasso and really went at them and had a decent first half.
Yeah, Gutierrez and Petrasso, which was something that Javier Perez said couldn't be done in his pre-match comments. Which was kind of funny to see on his team sheet immediately.
Maybe he was listening to our podcast because we said something similar this week. So maybe the TFC manager was scouting on our pod.
It's fully possible. You never know. You got to be careful what you say. Yeah, I thought that York did look very good in certain parts of the game. They looked very intense in their their pressing and the way that they wanted to really get at TFC and make things difficult for them.
Yeah,
and they did do quite a good job. I think Kristian Vagensa, especially in the first half hour or so, was playing the game of his life at times. He was really locked in that battle with Jacob Schaffelberg, which eventually, Schaffelberg kind of got the better of towards the end of the first half. But, York really did look up for this game, and you could tell what it meant to a lot of these players. I think they had 10 out of 11 Canadians in the lineup. I think it was 6 of them from the GTA. And it definitely was a game that they were up for. And you could see with the way that they were sprinting at every pass to try and intercept things. I think they had twice as many interceptions as TFC did in this game, because York were really trying to hunt them down and just get on the back of any TFC player.
Right.
And that's maybe something that surprised me a little bit, because they had no interest in sitting back at all. They had absolutely no intention of letting TFC come to them or making any inch of the pitch easy for TFC to get into. And I thought that York did very well in those stages, and it kind of got out of hand at the end because they were pushing farther and farther up the pitch, and TFC are on their day, a good team in transition like that. But York won't be too upset with the performance. The scoreline is disappointing, and they really felt that at the very least they felt like they had enough to score a goal in this game. But I think that there is a lot to be proud of in the way that they played here.
Yeah, I agree with that. James, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I think you're bang on there, and I like the way that York came out, on the front foot, and why not? They had nothing to lose. There really was no pressure on them, and I think Jimmy Brennan knew that. So I don't think he expected a win in any stretch. And like you said, the 4-0 scoreline, it may be flattering to a certain degree, but we could have seen a couple more goals go in as well. So it's one of those strange occasions on a very difficult night to play football in. But I thought that York did themselves proud, and they should leave with their heads held high for sure.
What did Jimmy say after the game, Charlie?
Yeah, it was a lot of that sort of thing. He was generally proud of how they came out, how they approached the game. He felt that he was not particularly pleased with the 2 goals towards the end of the first half. I think the way he put it was he was pretty frustrated to see Jonathan Osorio so open at the back post for that first goal, which is probably understandable, especially after York had been pretty good at taking away space in the box previous to that. And Jimmy was maybe on the whole, he did feel like there was more in the game for them, and he's a little bit frustrated that they didn't come away with at least one moment for them, one kind of something, a goal basically is what I'm getting at.
Right. Yeah, just score a goal, right? Have a moment, right?
They would have liked to score a goal.
Yeah.
But he felt that they were able to maybe grow into the game a little bit at times. Lowell Wright was a guy he singled out as maybe somebody who eventually started to get more involved in the play because he was quite isolated in the first half. And obviously it's a very young York team, so right. Jimmy was quite proud of the way that they handled themselves in what I can still see out there are very difficult conditions, and I'm not looking forward to walking to the train station in that. No,
well, we'll let you walk there very shortly because we've just been joined by our other guest, the fabulous Michael Singh, who's here from the winning side as my correspondent for TFC tonight. And he can tell us all about how an exciting night it was for TFC, and Javier Perez, I'm sure, had a bit more of an entertaining press conference afterwards. By the way, talking about entertaining, and I know Charlie wants to get home for the second half of this, an action-packed game right now at Spruce Meadows, still 0-0 through 9 minutes, but this game is on fire. Lots of stuff going on. A really good cup tie there. Charlie, before we let you go, mate, last segment I want to talk to you about is you love the Canadian Premier League. You've been in it from day one. You were there tonight in a game. James and I talked about it earlier, where TFC played York United, and in the end the result didn't go their way. But this, for the culture, for the fabric of this sport in this country, for this league, is an integral moment for this.
Sorry, the Wi-Fi might have ducked out there for a second. What was the end of that?
No, it's okay. Sharm's left me 4 times already tonight, yeah. So the connections are going on.
There's more on the way as well, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to say about what a special night this is for the league in general, regardless of the results.
Absolutely it is. And not just this game, but all of the CPL teams making the league proud in the Canadian Championship today, and obviously in all the other rounds. But just this specifically, having York United come down, whatever you want to say, the 427 Dufferin, whatever way they want to come, to BMO Field is, it's a very special moment, and especially for a lot of the York players who, without mincing it, a lot of them were Toronto FC fans until York United existed and signed them, right? But right. I'm sure a lot of them maybe still are,
right,
in some senses. So it was a very special moment for all of these young players. And just it's a game that we wanted for a while. We wanted to see the CPL come to BMO Field because it's kind of been one of the key venues for soccer in this country, and certainly one of the greatest stages for soccer moments in this country in the past few years. And it's just really a special moment, and maybe a watershed moment that we would have imagined at the start of the CPL. One day it's going to happen. And even still, we're probably still looking at one day a CPL team is going to win here.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier with the news recently about a CPL team playing a big Liga MX team soon in the in the Champions League. As someone said, waiting for Halifax to host Club America or something. That would be pretty special. Charlie, your mate Jeffrey is abusing you for fun in the chat. I will not tolerate that. I'm not reading any of it out. He's jealous of you being dry, and he's also having a go at you for finding a room. But I'll give you all the props for being professional to find a room where you could come on the show, just like our boy Mike over here, in a busy press box where people are seriously typing away. You guys are professionals. Charlie, we'll let you go, man. Go back and enjoy the second half of this great game at the Spruce Meadows, and we'll keep up the great work. We'll chat with you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks again, Charlie O'Connor-Clark. You can read his recap on CanPL.ca of the analysis tonight. Michael, you with me and James. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. How are you doing? Good to see both of you.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for coming on and being with us. This is the time for TFC chat. Get your questions in, get your comments in. James and I are going to talk with Mike for a bit of it on TFC. Overall, buddy, I mean, you've covered this team every game. You've been there. You know what it's like. Just job done, right? They just got to get this. They just had to do this tonight, no matter what. And in the end, what did you think of it?
Yeah, and I think that's really the sticking point right there, is that they needed the win no matter what fashion. They needed to advance tonight in the Canadian Championship. And overall, I think if you're Javier Perez, you have to be happy with that performance. Conditions obviously weren't ideal, but the effort level was there right from the jump from TFC. I thought they played on the front foot for the most of this match, and I think York had only one shot, if I'm not mistaken, on target. So they did their job. They really took the pressure off themselves by putting the pressure on York. And when you're putting that much pressure, eventually you're going to break through. And they did a good job of doing that early on to kind of take some of that pressure off of themselves. And from that point on, the floodgates sort of just opened up, and they just built on that. So, yeah, like I said, great to see some young Canadians as well for Toronto FC really get in on the action. You know, that first goal was a thing of beauty, and kind of what this competition is all about, when you had Richie Larea sending the ball to Jacob Schaffelberg, who sent it in the middle to Jonathan Osorio to tap it home. It's like that Canadian trifecta was a thing of beauty. And obviously Jaquil Marshall-Rudy coming into this match and really getting some minutes under his belt. And of course, the icing on the cake, Noble Okello, 21-year-old Canadian midfielder, going in there and getting his goals. So just an overall, just a great night for Toronto FC, and something we really haven't been able to say too often this season.
Yeah, big night for the Canadians, no question. James?
Yeah, I was going to ask your guys' opinion on Schaffelberg and what can he become. Obviously, he was very good tonight. He's at his moments this season, didn't get really much of a great crack under Greg Vanney, but what can Schaffelberg be? He's young still, right? You know, his career's really just starting. Can he be that key member of the Canadian squad? I think he's got one cap, hasn't he, so far?
Yeah, he's gotten into the squad, cracked into the national team there, and got some experience when they brought in a younger side, I think all the way back in January of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. I might be dating myself there, but you're correct there, James. He did make the breakthrough. And look, this is a guy who, talent-wise and you know, athletic-wise, he's all there. Like you know what you can get out of Jacob Schaffelberg every game. He's a guy who can really press the back line, be that guy who's running through lines every single night, and the effort level you're never going to question out of Jacob Schaffelberg. I think the biggest question with him is will he get that end product? Will he find a way to come up with those key crosses, that key finish? And lately, we're starting to see that all together. I think tonight he had at least 3-4 gorgeous crosses right on the money that, you know, 2 of them were converted. A third probably should have been converted by Jefferson Soteldo. So for him, now it's about consistency. And now, can you do that game in, game out? Can you make sure that end product is there consistently? And these last 2 games are definitely positive signs in the right direction. And I think tonight is sort of the player that he can be, and really at any level.
Yeah, consistency, a bit of unpredictability as well, right? I remember Greg Vanney always used to talk to me about him when I asked, and he said he needed to try and work on being different. A lot of the things was just too easy to defend against. It just got a bit too predictable. I'm not saying it's like that now, because this is a couple of seasons since Greg has said that, but I think that's always the evolution of wingers. No, it can't just simply be running up and down and try and get behind. He is an old-fashioned winger. He does look to try and get behind, while a lot of wingers these days want to come inside and receive the ball back to goal and create overlaps for fullbacks to go beyond. He does bring width, which TFC haven't had. I don't know how long. One constant with TFC is they don't have width. Even when they were winning titles, they didn't have width. They never have width, and so at least he brings something. He brings some width to the team. So that's an interesting one. somebody just asked me a question here about, oh yeah, Mazood says, is the Canadian Championship now more important than the season? I think that's pretty obvious, Michael, without rubbing the question the wrong way. But this is their season, TFC, no?
Yeah, and I think they've actually admitted that as well, where this team is playing for one trophy, I think, this season, and it is the Canadian Championship. And, you know, if they can find a way to go on here, get that trophy, it might sugarcoat what has been a dreadful year in some capacity. So they're playing all for that. And I think we saw that with the starting lineup tonight, which I was, my eyebrows definitely shot up a little bit when I saw the caliber of starting lineup Javier Perez elected to go with. And I think that's a statement of intent of exactly what they're trying to do here in the Canadian Championship.
Do you think the fans... Sorry, Paige.
It's all good.
Do you think the fans buy in to that, though? Given the season, how it's been in the league, it's been a disaster for numerous reasons. But do you think they'll say, if they get an 8th cup, if they do, still a long way to go, do you think they say, well, yeah, it was a tough year in the league, but we got the cup, so we're pretty happy? I'm not sure I buy into that just yet.
No.
Absolutely not. There's no way that definitely sugarcoats everything, but it is some sort of consolation. Maybe it'll ease some fans, some of the anger of some of these fans. But let me tell you something, James. If they go on here and they don't get to at least the final, that's gonna be something fun on let's say TFC Live Twitter, eh?
Or the next post-game live show here with us, because we may well be doing that as well, as they take on the winner of this current semi-final, Cavalry 0, Pacific 0 through 18 minutes. And when you finish watching us, you can go back on One Soccer and watch that, because this is fun. I'm watching it with half an eye. Every time I watch it, there's fouls. These teams have played each other about 25 times already this season in the Canadian Premier League. They're beating each other up for fun.
You're driving the audience there right now. Okay,
no.
It's not that good. You're better off here.
James, what old
still
men
scoreless.
What old men like me and you have to realize is that people can multitask. Right?
Yeah, I know.
Everyone's got like
multiple.
15 screens on these days. So they're watching different. They're watching that. We're getting people in the chat saying they're watching the League's Cup. Sounders are playing in that, that
Love Island's on somewhere, probably,
yeah. Exactly. We're creating our own Love Island here with our boy Michael.
Speak yourself.
I am speaking for myself. What about you? What about Soteldo, Michael? Not just tonight, but overall this season. What have you liked? What do we need more of? And I will say I've been underwhelmed with this player. Is that fair?
I think that is fair. That being said, KJ, I'm kind of a bit on the other end, where for me, Jefferson Soteldo's kind of been dealt a shorthand here. This was a guy I think was sold on coming to a winning culture. He was supposed to be that final piece along with someone like an Alejandro Pozuelo, a Josie Altidore, the Iowa Canolas. And he's shown up, and unfortunately, he's had none of those pieces really to work with. He's been really the only designated player that's consistently been in the lineup so far this season, and he's really being asked to do a lot. And when you're trying to link up with players, and no offense to Dom Dwyer or Patrick Mullins, who have 0 combined MLS goals this season, you're being asked to really do a lot. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think that's what the frustration is coming out in him, where he is trying to do too much. And really, I think teams are picking up on that, where they're not biting on his fakes anymore because they know that he prefers to just carry the ball forward himself as opposed to trusting his teammates. So I think, he's just turned 24 years old. I really think the best is yet to come for this player. But tonight, we did see some flashes of what I think TFC were kind of hoping for when they got Soteldo, and that's that directness, and that really he's a threat towards goal as opposed to kind of being isolated out on the wing and just dribbling too much. So to answer your question and wrap around to it, is just I think we need to see more of that directness. Sebastian Giovinco, obviously they're completely different players, but what made Sebastian Giovinco so special is he was really he picked up the ball with a purpose every time he picked up the ball. Whether it was to drive towards net or find that final pass, he had intent every time he picked up the ball. And I think Jefferson Soteldo needs to kind of pick up a page out of Giovinco's book there and really, for lack of better, like stop dribbling for no reason. It's kind of just dribble towards goal or dribble to beat players to get to a 2v1 or get on the 1v1 and capitalize, do something quickly. And I think if you have other pieces around you, that takes the pressure off of him. So that's my overall takeaway from Soteldo, and sort of a long answer for you, KJ.
No, I don't mind that at all, and I appreciate your answer. And I know you've seen him a ton. So, just a couple more minutes with Michael Singh, and then we'll let him go home. And then we'll just wrap up a little bit with James now with just a bit 5 minutes on European leagues, and we'll let you guys all go. But I'm here for the hard hitting questions tonight, Michael. So tell me if this one's a little bit out of line as well. You want Soteldo back? He's coming back, right? What about Pozuelo? He's going to need a new contract, right? Or do you give him a new contract, or do you play him with one more year left? Because this is going to be an enormous question for TFC, whoever's running that club. And can Soteldo, another number 9 who's probably going to come in, and Pozuelo all play together on the pitch together?
No, that's a great question. It's one that I think they're going to go back and forth with for a little bit, just because, hey, this is the most valuable player in 2020 that we're talking about, in Alejandro Pozuelo. This is one of the best players to ever play for Toronto FC, but he just turned 30 years old. And we're looking at a contract right now in Josie Altidore, who he signed around a similar age. And I think we can see what happens when you kind of take those risks at that age with a player like that. That being said, if I'm Toronto FC, I think you do give Pozuelo that new contract, just because he is a number 10, in which they don't have. He's also a player, the way that his playing style, it doesn't really, like, the physicality, the athleticism, that's not his game. And that's usually what goes when you age. And it's, a perfect example is someone like a Victor Vasquez or Benoit Cheroux. Like, these guys think the game differently, and that's never going to leave it for Alejandro Pozuelo. Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't mind re-signing Pozuelo if that is, what they decide to do. Now, if all 3 players can play together, I hope so. And I think what they need in that number 9 is just someone who could purely finish, and someone who can kind of keep up with everybody and be willing to get in behind. And that's obviously been TFC, if not the defense, then it's their ability to score. It's been their biggest question mark. Interesting.
Danny says, Soteldo's play style reminds me of Lucas Moura on Spurs. Very aggressive, always driving forward, but ultimately needs a 9 that draws attention to him. Masood says, I agree with Mike. The supporting cast for Soteldo, not good enough. Paul adds, Pozuelo can't stay healthy and now part of the Dirty 30 club. Hey, James, would you like to be part of the Dirty 30 club, mate?
Oh, such great times. It's a long time ago now, though. Yeah,
We're probably talking to a guy who's in the 20s club right now. So
yeah, I know.
Yeah. Felipe says Soteldo is not supposed to be the scorer, but he does need a guy to finish his plays. Talking of finishing plays, Alejandro Diaz almost scored for Pacific in this clash at Cavalry, still 0-0 through 24 minutes. Last one from me for you, Mike, before we let you go. What was the overall theme in the press conference tonight? You mentioned Perez, you mentioned the players. Must have thought pretty much, must have been pretty exciting I know you've sat through some doom and gloomers this year with these press conferences. How was this one?
Yeah, very weird to be at a press conference after a win, KJ. I didn't really know what to ask anymore. And yeah, no, I think it's been 3 straight, I'd say, positive performances from TFC. If you think back to, obviously that Nashville win over the weekend over the second place team in the Eastern Conference. The game before that, what they said, and Jonathan Osorio said, is that's a game they should have won. And that was against Inter Miami, when Jacob Schaffelberg had the goal that crossed the line, that looked like it crossed the line, but it was ultimately deemed not a goal. And Miami came down, and I think in extra or injury time there, and won the penalty that eventually won the match. So overall, I mean, the times are great right now at TFC, as great as they could be so far this season. I'd say this is the first time actually this year, KJ, where TFC have won back-to-back games.
Wow,
is that not bizarre?
Yeah,
we're in September saying that this is the first time that Toronto FC have won back-to-back games in all competitions. Not even just MLS league play, all competition. Is obviously it took a game against York United to accomplish that, but hey, it's a step in the right direction, and I think this team wants to finish off the regular season in a positive way. And regardless of how that may look, it needs to start with their performances, and I guess we got first couple steps in the right direction today.
Still a ton of pride, right? Still a ton of pride guys on there. Still a ton of guys who are fighting for their lives in terms of not their lives, but their footballing careers at TFC, wanting to get re-signed or stick around. And I know a lot of guys who don't want it to end this way after a very successful time there. So we'll see what they can do to help rebuild that, and of course, potentially win the trophy by the end of it. Hey, listen, bud, we really enjoyed you joining us. Can't thank you enough. I know it's been a busy night for you covering the league, covering for the league there as well, and then being in the press conferences. You do a brilliant job. Remind people before you go where they can read your piece tonight and where they can follow you.
Of course. And first of all, just thank you, gentlemen, obviously, for having me. Just a pleasure to share this platform with you guys. In terms of my work, mlssoccer.com is where you can find my recaps for tonight. And of course, follow me on Twitter at MichaelSingh94. Thanks again, gentlemen. I obviously really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for being with us, and we'll do it again soon. Safe travels back home, mate, and stay dry, and go watch the second half of Cavalry Pacific on One Soccer.
Of course. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers, Michael. Great night. Thanks again. Great work. Michael Singh covering TFC does a great job out there. Just great to see young guys out there working hard, James, and doing the bit for Canadian soccer. Right? It's important.
It is, yeah. And looking around, there's so many out there now compared to what there used to be, and they just are sponges for football information, and they're so knowledgeable. And Michael's a great example. Chaz as well, right. So knowledgeable, and they even love the boring part of the game, the tactics, like you. So I think you've inspired a generation there, pal.
I don't know about that. And you love it too. You just play a really good game of not knowing anything about it when you really do know.
I really don't know much about it, to be honest with you. Bunch of guys running on a field.
Yeah, exactly. Right. By the way, talking of which, I should mention this. Have you watched Ted Lasso yet?
Oh my God. It's one of the greatest shows in the history of television.
So I watched for the first time today.
Really?
The first 2 episodes for the first time today. I'm in.
You're in, right?
And you know my wife, and she's in too. Jenny's in.
Yeah, of course.
So we're all buying in. And
me and Tony, my wife as well.
Brilliant.
And, she doesn't watch sports at all, but she was hooked on this show from the first episode. So.
Right. The reason why I brought that up is because that moment you mentioned, there's just a bunch of guys running around the field. I thought about that time when he's like, oh, these guys are all from all over the place.
That's right, yeah.
Mexico,
Canada. Oh, yeah, I know.
Exactly,
it's amazing how, not to go off on a tangent, but, the Roy Kent character.
Yeah.
I mean, how they've managed to get away with that. We all know who is.
Why wasn't he Irish?
I know. I guess that'd be a little bit too close
obvious
to the chest, so to speak.
Yeah,
but
the hairy chest.
And he won the Best Supporting Actor at the Emmys this week, I believe. And Jason Sudeikis, I think, won the Best Actor.
My daughter, who's into all these awards, tells me that they scooped up tons of awards. So but I watched that today. I don't get time to watch many shows because I'm busy enough, but I will watch more time of that. Hello to our man Shane Kelly. He said, I've been commenting on Twitter all night and no love. Well, now you're getting your love right here. So there you go. Before we go, and we have kept you guys up for long enough than here. It's an over an hour show. But Sham's Premier League has been the bulk of your show on the Footy Prime on DAZN. What have you thought of it so far? And your boys, Liverpool, have they got a shot this year? Or is this Chelsea behemoth just taking off or what?
I'm waiting for that behemoth to come crashing down at some point because everyone loves Chelsea right now. And listen, they're playing amazing football. And Lukaku, everyone's forgotten about the old Lukaku, right? I mean, he is just something special right now. And just that all-action, modern centre forward. But I think on this occasion, it could be the tightest race in some time as far as the number of teams involved in that race.
Do you?
I do. I mean, Chelsea and City, obviously, but no one's really very, very few are talking about Liverpool. It's like, they've just forgotten what happened less than a year ago, right? When they were pretty good. Remember, pretty good. Right. And that front three are firing on all cylinders, with Jota in there. And then even United, listen, I think the jury's still out whether Ronaldo's going to fit in there. He's going to score lots of goals. Will he make them better? I'm not sure. But there's going to be 4 teams, I think, battling to the end here. Mm. That said, this time last year, City were in 11th place, right? Okay. And they came back and won it at a canter in the end. So I'm enjoying it a lot this season so far. There's some very, very good teams and very, very bad teams. It's just typical Premier League.
What I like about Liverpool is similar to what I like about Man City, is that defensively they can go through stretches where they just don't give up goals. You mentioned City were 11th last year. Then they went through this run I think they conceded like 3 goals in 6 months. No exaggeration. It's just they just never shipped goals.
Chelsea too, though. Chelsea as well this year.
And now
right?
Chelsea, I throw them in because of what Tuchel's done with the shape. But man for man, Van Dijk, Diaz, Stones, Laporte, Gomez, these guys are better defenders than what Chelsea's got. But what he's brought Thiago Silva's like 37 years old.
I know, but he's playing such great football right now. I mean, he's like
it's because of that system, though. It's
yeah,
Tuchel's system, right? Like, I don't think and every credit, it's about systems sometimes in teams, but like, for me, like, Christensen and these guys, they're not the same level as your defenders, but the system is helping.
Marcus Alonso isn't that level either, but he looks amazing.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Azpilicueta looks amazing in that system, and whether it's individuals or whether it's systems, since Tuchel came aboard, they've got the best defense in the Premier League, and that's a team that under Frank Lampard they couldn't keep a clean sheet for the life, right? No, it's amazing what he's done there. So
it's fantastic, and every credit to him, because I do know that some people, typical English, were questioning this addition of this guy from Germany who didn't work out in Paris, and how does he know anything about the Premier League? And
who succeeds going from Mainz to Borussia Dortmund? And doing who succeeds?
Oh, I wonder. Yeah, exactly. So no, I will say this about Man United: I don't think they have a midfield to win the Premier League. That's my problem with them, and I don't know if they have a manager to win the Premier League either.
The jury is out on him for sure, Ollie. I mean, I don't know what he needs to do to really get the respect, but he just doesn't have that presence that the other teams have on the sideline, right? We'll see if he actually yanks Ronaldo at some point from a game. Then I guess he'll grow my estimations. Right. But at this point, he doesn't seem prepared to do that. Albeit 3 games into the Ronaldo era.
They will be better, and they have finally worked out what it's like to become Manchester United, and they're actually buying Champions League caliber players again. They were swimming in the Europa League pool for about 8 years and wondered why they ended up having to play there all the time when they're signing players of that quality.
Wasn't it great?
It was great. It really was.
Enjoyed every second of it.
It was so great. Sorry, but I know there's some Man United fans here, Shane. Please don't disrespect my boy Matip, and Shane's loving Ronaldo and giving all this nonsense to Messi.
Matip played today in the Europa League, right? Sorry, in the League Cup.
Yeah,
Matip got some minutes finally.
Struggled as well.
Yeah,
but as a Villa fan, I don't really want to talk about what happened in the League Cup. Although I should kind of be happy about my Villa youngsters. We played a bunch of teenagers and almost beat Chelsea.
Yes, I thought Villa, what a great story they've been so far this year.
Yeah, it's been fun, man.
Matty Cash, by the way, has he got the same mother as Jack Grealish?
Because of the hair, you mean?
It's like, at least try and separate yourself a little bit. There's this iconic member of your club just left, and you have the exact same haircut and same Alice band.
I think Matty's a bit more stylish, to be honest.
You're just bitter, aren't you?
No, I'm not bitter at all.
Yeah,
I actually not. I didn't mind Grealish leaving. It was time for him to leave. It was time for him to leave. Happy days for 100 million. Did I say billion?
Same thing. It's the same thing really for me.
So and for me, the amount of the people they bought in, I thought they did tremendous shopping. They bought great, and they're a better team for it.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Ings, jeez, can't go wrong.
Yeah, so Ings is there, Bailey's there. Looks like Pacifica just scored. Pacifica just scored at the stadium in Cavalry, Spruce Meadows, and I think it's Terran Campbell again. Wow.
He's on fire, isn't he?
He's on fire right now, yeah. So 1-0 Pacific, Palma Car's team go into the lead. Ball comes into the box, again, live on One Soccer right now. Looks like Josh Hurd crossed it in. Didn't get cleared initially by Mason Trafford. A header comes in, and Terran Campbell, one time finish on the left foot into the back of the net past Marco Carducci in front of the fans. 1-0 Pacific. Wow, exciting times for them.
What story they are. Pacific.
Imagine if they get through this, having to beat the Whitecaps, go to Calgary, and then get to play TFC. That would be fantastic.
It could be the first double.
Yeah,
CPL history.
Hey, that would be great to watch. But this is fun. Pacific are a good team to watch. What Palma Car's got going right now, and they still don't have their best player. Bustos is still hurt, and they've scored tons of goals and charms as well. So, hey, listen, mate, this has been fun. That's so much fun. I can't thank you enough for joining me. And I know, like, on a night like this, when it's getting late and all this stuff, but I'd like to do this more. We should talk more about this stuff, get more people in, and all these people messaging us on a night like this. This has been fantastic. Again, CanPL.ca, go there for all your reaction to all the games today. Obviously, you can watch this on the YouTube channel for Canadian Premier League as well. And a reminder, the game right now happening through 35 minutes in the fourth quarter final of the Canadian Championship, Cavalry 0, Pacific 1. Shams, before you go, mate, what's next? Where can people hear from you? What you got lined up for your next Footy Prime show?
Yeah, Footy Prime, one dropped today. We have our DAZN soccer show coming out tomorrow, if not already, actually. It'll be coming out there. So, lots of European talk. We're trying to slide in more and more Canadian talk there as well within it. And, follow me on that, James Sharman, and happy to join you whenever you want, mate. This is a lot of
Brilliant.
fun.
Yeah, let's do
Real
that. And then,
edition.
yeah, Canadian show. You want some Canadian content? I'll come on and talk some
Done.
Canadian content at some point. Right. That's great stuff. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the comment. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Shane. We appreciate everybody coming. Mazood, thanks so much for your comments. Sleep well, everybody. Enjoy the games, and we'll chat with you again soon. Thanks, James. Thanks, Nick. Good night, everybody.